All right. Hello, all you sports fans out there in podcast, and welcome once again to another edition of Babbling Brooks, your new favorite podcast, where I, your host Brooks, try to bring you some of today's sports news with just a little twist of my point of view. Hope you're all having a fantastic Friday. Doing great so far to start the day myself. Had the rare 2 days off in a row since I actually asked off for yesterday. I had my regular day off Wednesday. Didn't do an episode yesterday. I got it like a weird, number one, like there wasn't anything specific to talk about other than, of course, I could have talked about the Hawks win on Thursday. Instead, I decided to package all that to the back end of this episode. It'll be talking about the Hawks back-to-back wins on back-to-back days. But first off, before I do a little brief baseball talk, I want to talk about how incredible yesterday was. First off, one reason, of course, I didn't do the episode was, like I mentioned, just not a lot to talk about. But also, I decided, or I thought about going hiking Wednesday. By the time I really started thinking about it, since I'd worked Tuesday night, it was already over 80 degrees and felt like, it was about to be 90, feeling like 100. And I was like, you know what? This isn't really a good time to go hiking. How about I looked at the forecast, and there was a slight chance of rain, which ended up being no rain yesterday, so that was great. But I was like, let me try to do this. I'll go to bed early and go like 7 in the morning. And of course, I was going to Cascade Springs Nature Preserve because I'd been meaning to go there. Actually, I went there a month ago when they were closed for some work they were doing, redoing the parking lot a little bit, and a couple parts of the trail. So I got there off the bus and got right back on another bus going the other way. But I want to, because it's not really anywhere walkable from there. Like, you can't walk very many places from there. But I was like, hey, what a fitting way to start the day of going to see Michael Render, Killer Mike, coming off what I believe is album of the year as of now. Definitely my favorite album. The only thing that comes close for me personally is Tommy Prine, my folk side. I would be the only album that I've listened to more or as much. But I definitely hip-hop wise and overall I would still say it's my album of the year. Michael is the title. And Killer Mike killed it last night. So it was a great day. Start out the day hitting up an amazing nature preserve on the west side. And really cool. It was like this random group of old women that doing some, I think it felt like some sort of church event. They're, singing some gospel while they're walking out, of course, saying hi to all them. They're really, really sweet. Some sweet women in that group, they're like, be careful on your own. And I'm like, I've been wandering around the city for a while at this point. But I appreciate it. I always try to keep the head, pay attention to my surroundings, of course, being careful and aware, but also try not to live in fear. Common sense, but not fear. But either way, it was a great day. Started out with a beautiful hike. And it was starting to get pretty hot by the time I was finishing up and heading home by around like noon. But I got out there not long after it opened, a little bit after 8, and walked around. Actually found a random side trail to connect to the main trail because I didn't want to disturb what looked like a sort of like stretching / like worship service. Like it was like right at the main entrance to the trail. But if you haven't been to Cascade Nature Preserve and you live in Atlanta, you should do it. It's really cool. Actually, this is like the first time I went there and did not see any deer. But I did, of course, see all the, birds, squirrels, and first turtle I've seen in a while. Because you got to be a little bit outside the mainstream to see that. And I've kind of slacked on hitting some of these trails up lately. So I was really excited to get to hit up Cascade Springs. It's a beautiful place. And it was this cool little turtle just chilling on the trail. Got a nice little picture of it. I'll put it on my other Instagram, more personal-ish Instagram. I'll try to remember, put it on the podcast Instagram, Babbling Brooks 84. It's already on Brooks Eye View. You can follow either one to see what I'm doing. And I try to keep the sports and like promotional kind of stuff on my Babbling Brooks 84. But either way, it was an exciting day. And like I said, start out with a beautiful hike, go home, smoke a little weed, take a little nap, wake up, smoke a little more weed, go see Killer Mike. And I wish I could have saw Blink 182. It was also the same night. Both shows were last night in downtown Atlanta. My best friend Zach was at the Blink show. And honestly, if there had not been the Killer Mike show, I would have gone to the Blink show. But I'm glad I went to the Killer Mike show. I'm sure the Blink show was incredible. I would have been behind the stage, though, to have the same ticket price that I had for Killer Mike, and I was like up like the second level of the balcony, which I hadn't been up there much at Tabernacle other than the Dave Chappelle, Jon Stewart like stand up tour. But it was cool because usually on the floor, the problem is number one, you feel like you have to get there super early or just like push through a bunch of people in like an asshole type way, which I don't usually like doing. And then also there's the issue of being like 5'5" at best. So like, there's always the chance of a random like 6 foot and up person getting in front of me. Very good chance of someone taller than me blocking my view at some point. So you can see well from the seats. I ended up standing up the whole time anyway once Killer came out. And I thought it would be like a church service. It's in an old church building, the Tabernacle, built like 1911. And also Killer Mike, man, he's just preaching on this new album. And just like you need to check out Cascade Springs Nature Preserve if you haven't. If you hadn't listened to the new Killer Mike album, Michael, like do it. Like Spotify, Tidal, buy it directly from him. Either way, listen to that shit. Because it's an awesome album. Definitely, like I've already said multiple times, album of the year thus far. And I don't see anything surpassing it. Maybe another Nas album. He is working on King's Disease 4. So we'll see. But I still feel like album of the year. Just started out with the album opener, which I think is a great, I really enjoy that song. It's a Down by Law, and it's like one of those songs I can't not move. That's what's so great. Not just about how he's rapping, but just the production he linked up with on this album, doing a little different. Went through, did most of the album, not the entire album, but did most of the album. Threw in a couple old ones. My favorite old one he did, of course, was Reagan. The song from, I can't remember which album that was, but it's like ends with I'll leave you with 4 words, I'm glad Reagan's dead. So definitely my Nana's least favorite song, if she had ever heard it. She loves her some Reagan. It's like, at this point in her life, I don't think it's arguing with her about Ronald Reagan, so I just don't talk about it. And do I think he was terrible? Just potentially a war criminal like most presidents. Or just a senile, poor little old man is what they want. That's the thing they tell you to like try to save his legacy. That tells you somebody's legacy is kind of fucked up. The best thing is like, well, he was senile, so it wasn't his fault. Ran Contra and then using the CIA against the American population to try to change their minds about supporting the Contras, so he didn't have to do it illegally. That's a whole other thing. And I did appreciate him like talking his political shit, and I respect that about Killer Mike because he doesn't just like. A lot of people are just like, well, Donald Trump is obviously terrible, but the Democrats sometimes just count on that. It's like they just like expect, well, you should vote for us because look at him. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you gonna do for us? So I appreciate Killer Mike calling them out, being true to his principles, and and being like, hey man, like we're not just like a political pawn. Which I feel like that's sometimes how the Democrats sadly end up. As a white person, weird to say, but it's like that's how they use black people sometimes. They're just like, you should vote for us because this and that, and like, well, do something for us, not just like talk. And that's how just for people, working people, regular people in general, neither party really serves our interest. Like they serve the moneyed interest for the most part, and that's really both parties. You can just sometimes be different moneyed interests. Some would argue that maybe it's a play fight between the two parties, and that they actually all love each other. I wouldn't be surprised to find, Donald and Hillary and Joe. Everybody just chilling. Even Ron. I see it less with Ron. He seems less part of that class. Because even Trump, as much as he's like the outsider, is just kind of a ridiculous term. Like, you think this guy with the, so I try to tell my family that supports him sometimes back home. Like, you think this guy with gold everywhere, like, doesn't give a damn about nobody. Like, you think he gives a damn about you? He is using you. Like, they're all using us. But that's a topic for a whole different podcast. So I'll try to focus on Killer Mike, but he kept going through that, just kept talking his shit, which also, of course, he did. And that song has impressed me since it came out. Just the way he just changes the flow up, like just effortlessly, it feels like. And he just such a inspiring figure, man. He kept saying he wanted this to be a spiritual experience, and I felt like it was. I think back-to-back shows that were that felt almost spiritual. Absol just a couple weeks ago, and then this one back to back was just fucking incredible. My third like full-on concert of the year. And the first one was awesome too. I got to see Sonny War as well as Sarah Shook and the Disarmers at the Earl. And that was an awesome show. So I've not had a bad concert this year. I usually don't because I choose them pretty well. Next up, I believe will be I think J Skis and Rome Streets with my good guy DJ Kerosene doing some. Him and I think Fort Knox is also promoting part of the package. He's always brings you an excitement, almost too much sometimes, man. I'll be like, dude, I'm tired. I can't shout for every artist. I try, but it gets me to anyway. It motivates me. So that'll be a cool show. That'll be at aisle 5. But nothing's gonna really. I don't see anything being better, honestly, than the last 2 shows I went to. Trying to be open-minded, but man, Killer Mike, Absol. That's a collaboration we need. Y'all do better. I have to see Killer Mike adding the verse to Do Better. Something like that, Church on the Move. Because it was definitely Church on the Move last night. Had a Midnight Revival, like backup singers. DJ Trackstar doing the DJ stuff for him on this one. Had Big Boy come out. A couple other local people too. Of course, T.I. T.I. snuck out there. I was like, who was that? And a couple other people who I probably need to look up. I was like, I know this song. I know I need to know who this is. But I don't, sadly. But I was partially hoping Andre would come out. He did perform, played Andre's part, and he did his off the Scientists and Engineers off this one. But who knows where Andre is? I figured at least one Outcast guy would. So Big Boy being there wasn't that surprising. But it was still really, really, really cool seeing Big Boy. I feel like he's a little more local than Andre. Andre would be showing up in random videos like playing the flute at a train station in Japan. So who knows where the hell is? He could, playing the ukulele in Siberia for all we know. Not that's less likely because I don't think anybody's trying. Nobody's really trying to go to Siberia. I was just trying to think of the most random place I could think of. Maybe playing the ukulele in Istanbul. I don't know if I'd want to be in Turkey right now. It's a hotbed. Right, right in between it all. It's a little too close. I don't know if I want to be close to Ukraine right now. No offense. Love to visit sometime, but not right now. Talk about right now. Before I go way too long on that part of the episode, let's talk about the Braves just really quick, or Atlanta baseball in general. Something I meant to mention the other day, but I kind of forgot, honestly, because I didn't do any notes. So that's what happens. When you don't do notes, you forget shit. The Braves apparently are a heavy contender to host the 2025 All Star Game. And the All Star Game has not been in Atlanta since 2000. Still wouldn't be in Atlanta, but Atlanta-ish, we'll call it, even though they technically have an Atlanta address. We all know that's bullshit. That ain't Atlanta. That's the only bad thing about that stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. It's a better stadium than Turner Field, but damn it, I wish they could have built it in Atlanta. Like, right, number one, I'd be walking to fucking games. Number two, it just kind of feels like you're abandoning the city for a little, try to get that, customer base up there in Cobb, whatever. Like I said, that's a whole other episode. But the Braves, apparently Baltimore and Toronto are the other cities that have been mentioned as being in the running. So I like Atlanta's chances. Of course, it was going to be here in 2021, and the Republicans passed the voter law that was definitely a way of trying to limit liberal voters, particularly probably black voters in some places. So seemed like kind of targeted. So MLB decided, take a stand, however firm it was, because even Stacey Abrams was like, it shouldn't move because we could still have the game here and bring attention. So it just felt like a mishandling of the situation. But All-Star Game, but 2021, man, it was a different time, right? So politically charged, unlike now when everything's just chill and cool. So I guess they're hoping things are cool by 2025. Brian Kemp in his 10th term, or not, second, third term by that point, I guess. But either way, kind of interesting. I don't think I can afford to go to an All-Star Game. Maybe I can in 2 years. Stay tuned. Y'all can help me be able to afford that All-Star Game. I'd love to go. Definitely be around the stadium without a doubt if there's an All-Star Game in Atlanta. And I still haven't gone to a game this season yet. Halfway through the season, I keep putting it off. It's just tough to get up there, man. That's when you don't drive. That's a long trek, and the games are not as affordable as they were before they won a World Series. Even that year, 2021, tickets were more affordable. They had specials. It feels like now they're selling every game out, so there's no specials. You just get those $25 standing room tickets at best. So I'm definitely going to go. Definitely going to a game at some point in the hopefully near future. I've had a couple friends like show interest in going, and like some of them can drive, so that would be helpful. But I'll probably just go ahead and go soon. Either it'll be a Wednesday or Saturday. Those are my like solid days off, so I can go up there. Probably, it's such a trek getting back on a Saturday and have to work early. So I'll probably shoot for a Wednesday soon. That's the plan. But the Braves, kind of just a couple quick things. Because they haven't played, obviously, in a couple of days. They had the Braves in the All Star Game on Tuesday. Everybody else off. Back in action tonight against the White Sox. Got Charlie Morton on the mound, followed by Spencer Strider in Game 2. And the surprise, Colby Allard pitched an inning of relief the other day. I was wondering if maybe they were considering putting him in the bullpen. But doesn't seem like it unless this is a bullpen game. But I was surprised because it should be like Bryce Elder pitching on normal rest. But I haven't seen anything. I guess they wanted to give him an extra couple days off. Because the Braves, strangely enough, the way the schedule works out, are off again on Thursday. Even though they're not traveling. First up, they got the White Sox in Atlanta. And then they face off against the Diamondbacks come to town. So it's kind of strange to me that there's a day off. I guess that's just how the schedule worked out. But you don't think anybody would have days off, after the All-Star break that soon, that there wouldn't be any gaps like that. So, blessing or a curse, because that probably means they got a long stretch coming up without a day off. But regardless, kind of surprised to not see Bryce Elder mentioned. I'm sure he'll still be starting sometime in the Arizona series. But the Braves have yet to mention neither of the Diamondbacks. There's no list of probable pitchers for that series. So it's hard to tell what the plan is. I would assume Bryce Elder will pitch the first game of that series. But maybe they wanted to give Colby Allard a chance one more time, an opportunity, because he wasn't bad necessarily, just okay. But they got to see what they got, because Max Fried's going to be coming up soon, and somebody is going to be losing their spot. Like Soroka, I would assume he'll be pitching in that Arizona series after he looked really good last time out. So we can see him keep building on that success, and I'd love to see him part of that rotation when Max gets back. Max, Michael Soroka, Spencer Strider, Bryce Elder, and Charlie Morton down the stretch. I don't mind that at all. Of course, Max still has some work to do, but I would assume he'll be pitching sometime the next few days, couple days probably by the weekend. Probably today, I would assume, actually. But either way, because he pitched on Sunday, his debut, and his rehab stint only went like an inning and a third. It's part of the plan. Like, it's all about pitch count with him right now. 35, so I would assume he'll go up to probably 50 for the next one. And then they'll try to see if he can get up to 75, I would assume would be the next level. And then you start feeling like maybe he's a little more comfortable, seeing if he's ready to come back to the big club. And like I keep saying, I do not expect Kyle Wright to come back this year. But Max, it's going to be great to get him. And some of this will affect, too, seeing how these guys do, like where the Braves feel like they need to get an extra arm in the bullpen or the rotation. Because I don't think they're going to think about an extra bat. Like, at this point, like, you don't really need anybody unless you just want to get, like, an extra guy just in case kind of stuff. But I feel like we've got some of those at AAA. We still, got going like Sam Hilliard, like can come in. Kevin Pillar, Charlie Culberson, who hasn't came in yet. So I feel like if they get anything, it'll be like an extra arm, just depending on how it goes the next few days. I think an extra bullpen arm is more likely than another starter, especially with Max coming back. But you never know. They may decide they need an extra one just in case. Don't want to depend on Soroka and or Colby. And the bullpen, that just seems more likely. I did see, of course, we got Jesse Chavez still out. And they just put Nick Anderson on the 60-day injured list, which pretty close to ending his season. Not, there's still be some time left, like the last month of the season in the playoffs. But whenever, have someone just like that, you put on the 60-day IL, and it goes back to the 8th of July. So they did it retroactively. It's still weird to me that you can do that. I guess as long as they're inactive, it works. But, he's been doing a good job for us. Not like, whoa, this guy's amazing all the time kind of stuff, but a decent, usually reliable arm out the bullpen. Sometimes can give you more than an inning. But usually pretty good about giving you a quality inning. So who's going to pick up that slack? We're already without Chavez. So that's why I see the bullpen being a little more likely. But I don't see any major moves because it's kind of depleted our system a little bit with these big trades in the last couple of years. Matt Olson and Sean Murphy. Definitely the trades are worth it, but you don't want to deplete your system too much because you're going to need that yourself in the next couple of years. And maybe there could be a more important trade piece that you get at some point. And before we move on from the Braves, go this day in Braves history. About 1967 and 1968, on the exact same day, consecutive years, Eddie Matthews and Hank Aaron hit their 500th career home runs. So cool little day. And fun fact, Ken Griffey Sr. on this day in 1988 singled for his 2000th career hit. And I did not know he was with the Braves. Maybe it's one of those things I knew and just forgot. But it's, because it was just such a brief stint. It was from 1986 to 1988, but he only spent like one full season because it was like a mid-season trade both times to get the Braves. So, and then he ended up with the Reds and ended up with his son to close his career up in Seattle. And so that's just kind of cool, him, a little part of history with him. Just we're talking about Ken Griffey a lot with the All Star Game being in Seattle and him being everywhere. That was kind of cool too. And also the fact, it reminds me of Ken Griffey Jr. And at one point, after a family friend athlete died and something that happened, I can't remember what it was, he requested a trade to Cincinnati to be closer to his family, and the Mariners giving him that. And he could have been a Brave too. Apparently, there was a time at the end of his career, 2009, I think it was, before he was going to sign. It was between, he was leaning toward, there was part of him that was wanting to go back to the Mariners, which is what he ended up doing. But apparently he was very seriously considering signing with the Braves in 2009. Ken Griffey Jr. could have ended his career with the Braves, but apparently the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did some kind of false, I don't know if somebody told them wrong or they were just making shit up, but it was basically not, they reported a premature story. They're like, Ken Griffey's coming to Atlanta, and that combined with a conversation I guess he had with his own daughter and with Willie Mays led him to be like, you know what, I don't want to go to Atlanta after all. And he ended up going back to Seattle. But I guess because I wasn't really watching baseball at that point, so I totally had missed that. So another fun fact. And last Braves history for the day. There was other stuff, but these were the three things I found the most interesting, or four, because Eddie and Hank is technically 2 separate years. 1997, Ryan Klesko and some guy who I've somehow never heard of, even though I was definitely watching Braves baseball in 1997, Tim Spehr, S-P-E-H-R. They hit a grand slam each in the same game. Teammates, so not a common thing, but the Braves did it on that day. Maybe they can do it today. I'll take one grand slam, But I wrote that one down mostly because I was really surprised that one of the guys was someone I had not heard of. Maybe it's someone I would have known back then, but just, you think he was with the Braves and he hit a grand slam. I don't remember his name, but he spent just that season with the Braves. It wasn't like he was there a lot. I think he spent most of his time with the Royals. Had to look him up on Wikipedia because I was like, I've never heard of this guy. Obviously, I have Ryan Klesko. He was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch back in the day. Big boy out there in left field. Definitely club it. But hey, before we, there's not much Braves to talk about, so we'll move on from that. Hopefully they'll get the win tonight against the White Sox. Talk about that more tomorrow. Opening of the second half of the season, or the second part of the season, because it's not technically a half. The All-Star, the half point of the season falls slightly before the All-Star game. So, there's that. But the Hawks were in action, or at least the Summer League Hawks. And we did have the big Hawks showing a bunch of support throughout the Summer League, which is cool to see, especially DeJounte Murray signing that big extension. Glad to have him around. It's cool to see his post about it. Just prompt that season. I'm loyal. And I do appreciate that about him. Just his attitude, the way he seems to conduct himself. I got respect for DeJounte Murray. Trey as well. Trey, everybody's different, man. People are different types of leaders. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they can lead this team together. And, of course, there has been more rumors about the Pascal Siakam trade potentials. He did apparently follow Trae Young back on Instagram, which counts as news in 2023. But, I wouldn't mind having Pascal Siakam. I would hope there's a limit to what I would want to give up for him necessarily. But, I would be okay giving up a couple guys for him. I wouldn't want to give up everybody. I did see one thing that was like saying that the Hawks could trade DeAndre Hunter and Garrison Matthews for Pascal Siakam. I was like, there ain't no way the Raptors are doing that trade. Every other trade I've seen for him is usually like Okongwu, DeAndre Hunter. Sometimes they'll throw in another like promising young player like Jalen or AJ. And I'm like, man, I don't know, that's kind of stretching it. But I was like, yeah, DeAndre Hunter and Garrison Matthews, I'd make that trade immediately. Immediately. Don't see that happening, though. And like I said, I'm kind of torn on DeAndre Hunter because I think he has a lot of potential and he shows flashes of it, but he hasn't really shown it consistently. So that would be why I would be okay with trading him. He's also another of those players could go off as soon as you send him somewhere else, and then you regret it. So I think, I'm okay with trading him. Don't think we should give him away. But especially if we think we can get Siakam locked in some, because you don't want to do that trade for a rental for too much. But I definitely wouldn't mind seeing either Capella, maybe Capella and DeAndre Hunter, but they're probably not going to want to trade another center. But that would be one thing. I did also see potential that the Hawks could try to trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Of course, that would not involve Capella because they wouldn't want to trade ones. They don't want to put him and Rudy up there together because looks like they'll probably end up with Towns as a 4 there. It could maybe be a 5 with Atlanta, or it could be a 4 alongside Capella. And I don't know how I feel about that. Towns is one of those that's showed flashes of potential, and also I don't think the Wolves are going to be doing that until like later in the season. I think they're going to run with what they have. Anthony Edwards being the primary, then you got the big guys. Like I feel like they're, the way they're talking, I don't see them trading. But the Pascal Siakam, even though there's been rumors that he doesn't want to be traded, and he's been trying to tell teams that he wants to stay in Toronto, but they're definitely listening, and they don't want to risk losing him for nothing like they did with Kyle Lowry and just now Fred VanVleet. But at the same time, I don't know, I'm torn. I think he'd be a great piece at power forward alongside Trae and DeJounte. Just do a bunch of different stuff, throw defenses off, and I feel like they could build some continuity, get some lobs going with him, and he's more than just that as well. So I would like getting Pascal Siakam. I think that would elevate this team, just depending on what you have to give up. Because I would not give up Jalen Johnson or A.J. Griffin in that. And I'm questioning about whether I want to give up Okongwu. So I kind of lean towards trying to move on Capella, just because, let's face it, he's done some great work for us, but he's probably getting closer to the backside than the front side of his career. So he's already. Do you want to keep him? Maybe you get, and I feel like he kind of has higher trade value than most of these guys, just because he's done more. And then DeAndre Hunter, maybe DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind seeing Garrison Matthews get traded. Just if we can throw him in there, I don't see the point in him. We can't trade Bogey yet. Maybe Sadiq Bey, but I feel like they're thinking of him as a partial John Collins replacement. But if you get Pascal Siakam, that's your John Collins replacement. Definitely he's elevated over, Jalen Johnson or Sadiq Bey. But both of them can also play small forward. So there's some options. But the Hawks, showing up, some of the guys trying to get on the team. A couple of the guys obviously will probably end up on the team. Others still sort of fighting for it. But the Hawks did win back-to-back games, Wednesday and Thursday, both strange kind of afternoon games, which means they were early as shit in Vegas. So they're 4 o'clock and 3:30 here. Basically 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock games out there. So some early games, which is weird. You don't play a lot of early games in the regular season even, really. Just some Sundays, maybe Saturday, but Wednesday, Thursday day games is not something you're going to see a lot in the NBA. But it's Summer League, and you got to cram a bunch of games in all in the same day. So you got, they have 2 different venues, I believe, there in Vegas. So you got to have some throughout the day. They're trying to, make an event of it. But that's 3 wins in a row after losing their opener. And though, wins and losses don't technically matter because this is more about development and evaluation. Because you're trying to see what you got, who you got. But it's still encouraging to see, see the guys getting wins back-to-back days. At first over the Timberwolves, 99-93. Mostly behind Tyrese Martin, He had 14 points in the fourth quarter and it was 25 total. Definitely looked like he was trying to show why he deserves to get that guaranteed money. His deadline, I believe, is a week away for them deciding whether they want to give him that money or let him go. Like if he's on the roster, on the 21st, he gets that $2 million. Him and Vic Krejci are between $1 and $2 million, I believe, for both of them. And Tyrese definitely looking more likely to stick around than Vic, especially if he does this again. He had 25 in this one. Very aggressive in that fourth quarter. In that post game, he said he did not want to lose, and that showed. But also felt like he was kind of showing off. There were times where Vic Krejci looked, he was like, "Come on, man, I need a chance to show off too." But so you like what you see there. Didn't do as much in the next one. In the next game, he only ended up with. Let's see, where did I write it down? Kind of bounced back to earth a little bit. Still had a decent game in the second one, but not quite the same as the first one. So what I ended up doing, we got the win both times. It felt like it was a more balanced win against the 76ers because nobody over 20, nobody with little gaudy numbers. It's like kind of a balanced box score. See, and this one, Tyrese he just had 10 points. But he only played in 15 minutes, so they maybe saw enough in the previous game. So he wasn't playing as much. It felt like more trying to play everybody a little bit. And, and one thing I noticed is A.J. Griffin, after playing the first couple games, did not play in these two at all. So thinking maybe he's done. Maybe they try to use him a little bit more. But I knew he wouldn't be like full go in the summer league because he did, he played limited down the stretch. Did just finish an NBA season. And you don't want to risk someone like him with so much potential getting hurt in summer league when it's not necessary. We already know he's going to be on the team. I think a lot of it, maybe they're seeing how he can be as a leader potentially because you did see him sitting there on the bench talking up a couple of the guys. So like kind of, he was like showing them things he was seeing. But it's just kind of fun, like seeing the potential of these guys. But Tyrese didn't do as much in the other game, but this, 25 points definitely showing that he potentially could belong. Maybe a deep rotation guy. And like I said, it's hard to tell about this team because it feels like we're on the verge, whether it's Pascal Siakam or someone else. We're on the verge of like at least a semi-big move. A big move if it's Pascal, but there could be someone else. But I feel like we're about to make another move, and that'll determine a lot of that. There's going to be room. Because right now there's only room for one more guaranteed contract. And I think you'd be leaning towards Tyrese Martin, probably. But you never know because some of these other guys have showed some stuff. Of course, Kobe Buffkin already, like he's pretty much locked in to be with the team unless they just decide they would like to see him in the G League some where he would get to play more often. But as of now, he'd be competing with Patty Mills for like those backup point guard minutes. But he could also play some shooting guard. But I think they're kind of wanting him to be the backup point guard, it feels to me. But maybe he could be like a backup hybrid guard. And then you potentially are able to move Bogdanovich because he could take some of those minutes between him and Patty Mills. But either Patty Mills or Bogdanovich is going to move. But you can't move Bogdanovich yet. So, not till like 6 months after he signs that extension. So Kobe kind of fell off a little bit after what felt like a big bounce back game. The second game of the summer league after hitting all those threes after starting 0 for 11, he kind of went on a tear. But 0 3 from downtown in this one. Neither one of these, he's 0 5 between these two games. Maybe some of that is just getting tired, but he seems to be the type of kid. He's got some confidence, so he should be able to bounce back from that and have an incredible, have some good times. But just got to keep shooting. And that'll fall some. But you got to remember, he's 19 years old. Like, he was born my second year of college. So he's got some time to grow. But we're seeing some flashes of that potential that he has. But he's got nothing to worry about as a first-round pick. And Muhammad Gay, great game for another. Not great numbers for him either one of these games. But it felt like, he's showing, like, potential. He was 0-2 for 3 in this one. But he had 2 blocks, ended up with 11 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. And it is good to see both these guys good. Number one, having some great moves. There was one of his moves that was like I think it was in the second game, though, but it was just very, it was just attacking, but then, weird little move to throw the guy off, jump back just enough to like create some space and throw him off. And just the way he can move and handle the ball and shoot threes at 7 foot or 6'11", like a lot of potential. But he's one I would not be surprised to see start in the G League, just where he can get some more time in. But also, I wouldn't be shocked to see him with the big club, just because he could, provide some athleticism. But I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if he's more G League to begin with. Some other guys talked about Vic Krejci, the great hype man last year, but you want to pay a guy $1.6 million to be your hype man because he's barely played. But I did appreciate his attitude. But like, how much is that worth paying for? And he started in this one, and both these games he scored just 6 points. So I don't see him getting that. I think he's gonna end up being cut. Maybe he comes back on a different deal, but I feel like he's gonna explore some options. Maybe he's just not getting the chance to shine, but just feels like he's not doing enough with the time that he is getting. 6 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. So that's an ominous stat line. Not terrible, but not great. He was only 1 of 4 from 3 in this one. Kabengele, who has mostly kind of been into the G League the last couple years after getting drafted. 2019, getting immediately traded to the Clippers. Played with the Maine Celtics last year. And he's got some potential, but I feel like if he's with us, he's going to be in the G League. I don't see him really having a chance. Even though he's got some decent numbers, he's been getting double figures the first couple games. Fell off with only 6 points in the Thursday game. Some of that could be more guys getting playing time. He had 13 points, 2 blocks, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. It's not terrible, but not someone I see having a chance to make the roster, really, unless he just really shines out. But not terrible, someone you wouldn't mind having on your G League team, but just not room with the Atlanta Hawks right now. And Seth Lundy, his first kind of big number game in this one, which ended up leading the team in scoring, was 16 the next day. But this day, 14 points, 5 rebounds. And more importantly, both these games, he hit 4 threes. He was 4 of 8 in this one. Ends up hitting, I think it was 4 of 11 in the next one. But still, either way, definitely Hawks, out-rebounding both these teams kind of significantly. And especially the Sixers. We'll talk more about that in a second. And out-shooting. They had 11 threes on Wednesday. And they made, I believe, 14 threes on Thursday. So that's good to see. But like I said, we're not going to be seeing a lot of these guys with the big team. Because even Seth Lundy, he's on that 2-way contract. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, spending some time in the G League. But he's older than a lot of these kids. He actually did the full time in college thing, coming out of Penn State. I think he's 20. He's in his 20s. So he is a little more seasoned than some of these kids. But the ceiling feels less high. But also, I haven't watched him play until the summer league. I never watched Penn State basketball. I just pretty much with college basketball watched the tournament. Before that, before the conference tournaments, it's just too much going on. I'm not usually that into it. I'll try to do better this year. Try to do better, like Absol tells me to. But Seth Lundy, definitely someone that potentially could be good with this team. But there's just such a crowded team right now. You got to think, these guys fighting for the last couple roster spots aren't probably going to play much, even if they do make the team, because you can only, there's 15 guys on an NBA team. Most teams ain't playing more than 8 or 9 guys. 10 at the absolute most that are going to be in the rotation. But usually it's going to be more 8 or 9 for most coaches. It differs coach to coach. So, there's definitely going to be some of these guys, especially the ones that you got locked in on that 2-way contract. I wouldn't be surprised to see them spend more time in College Park than Atlanta, just until there's some injuries or something. Because you're not going to have, if you want to develop players, you need them playing. And there's only so much playing time to go around. Even with Kobe, I'm is it possible he does some time in the G League? I feel like it's unlikely since he has the first round draft pick, but the Hawks have done that. But that was, different coaches, more like Nate McMillan, who was did not want to give much time to the young guys. So I feel like that kind of hurt AJ and Jalen's development slightly. Still got a lot of potential, though. And like I said, Hawks able to get the win against Philadelphia, even though they were behind most of the game. Had a 31-point fourth quarter. So it is just summer league, and like I said, most of these guys aren't going to contribute to the big squad. but still like to see it. Antonio Lang did a good job coaching them up. One thing that really surprised me in this one is the difference in offensive rebounds. Overall, the Hawks had 44 rebounds compared to just 27 for Philadelphia. But the offensive rebounds, the Hawks had 15. The Philadelphia Summer League team only had 1 as a team, and they were at 0 until pretty late. That 1 came late. And I was like, well, that's just a strange stat. I'm like, how do you end up with that? So it's good to see these guys getting rebounds. Instead, hopefully that'll translate to at least a couple of them, with the Hawks. Seth Lundy, the leading scorer in this one. Like, nobody over 20. Just a very, very balanced attack in this one. I think with Summer League, you're just trying to get guys minutes. You don't necessarily. It's nice to win, and obviously the players are trying to win, but the idea isn't entirely winning. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about evaluation and just trying to see what you got. What do you got in these guys, and development. Trying to develop them and try to see who is going to be the best fit for your squad and who would be a great Summer League pickup or development or G League player for you. Kobe in this one, another kind of not quiet but not as much as you would like. 14 points, had 7 assists. His assists were down the previous game, so good to see those kind of numbers. And he's 0-2 from 3, so it's kind of disappointing to see him fall off from 3 like that. But I mean, he's really young. He's really green. Like, it's gonna take a sec. He's gonna have some off days, and he's just gotta learn not to let it get him down so much, and just keep shooting, and he'll figure out a way. It'll start falling for him, I do believe. He had 5 turnovers, which you'd like to see a lower number, but that's really even look at Trey. Like, 4 turnovers ends up being a normal number for him most of the time. If you're handling the ball a lot, you're gonna turn the ball over than other people. So you'd like to see it come down, but it's just the Summer League. Very green, very young, going to make mistakes. This is when you want them to start making those mistakes so you can work on them and improve on them and get better. And Muhammad Gay, another 10-point, almost double-double, so it's nice to see that he's at least close-ish to double-doubles most games, like 11 and 6. This one he had 10 points, 8 rebounds, and another 2-block game. And this one he was 2 of 3. From downtown. So low point total, but still doing it. And him and Kobe, too, I appreciate they're getting to the foul line, especially Kobe Buffkin, just being aggressive. And I really like that he's, attacking the rim, especially as small and young as he is, still he's not scared to do that. You got to get tougher in the NBA, but still, I like that aggressiveness, getting to the line. That's, sort of how Trey's able to get so many points. But y'all got to watch the flopping rule, which we did see that one, which it seemed kind of questionable in this one. And see, some other guys, Brady Manick, another guy who I think could compete potentially for a roster spot. I think he needs to show us a little bit more. But I think, Trey, having played with him a year in Oklahoma, in fact, he's an experienced player in 4 at Oklahoma in 1 year, had that extra year of eligibility from COVID that he used at UNC. And he could be a valuable bench piece, but it just doesn't feel like there's room for him right now. He could sort of fill some of those bogey minutes when they trade him. And he had 13.6 rebounds. Miles Norris, one of those guys on a 2-way contract, undrafted, 12 points, 4 rebounds, and a couple steals. See how he does. Like, another perfect player I feel like is more than likely going to end up at G League. But he is just now getting into the rotation, so he can still show something. But as of now, like, it just feels like no more than a couple guys that haven't already locked it in. Like, I feel like Kobe and Gay got a good chance at making the big team, at least getting some minutes. Like, being the limited guys, getting a chance to be around the squad. And then more like Lundy. I think Lundy and Manick are kind of bubble guys right now. And, Tyrese Martin, I think, is outplaying Vic Krejci. So I think that leads to him being more likely to stay on the team past his guaranteed deadline. Whereas Krejci, I just don't, maybe they can bring him back on a not a guaranteed deal. But the way it's going now, and he's just not really shown us a whole lot. Maybe some of that is the way it works out, and he's just not a big stat guy. Maybe he can make other guys better in a way that doesn't show up on the stat line, and they bring him back. But now it'd be Tyrese, and then he's kind of competing with like guys like Brady Manick and even Seth Lundy, who I think is destined for the G League, but he could prove me wrong. They could like that he's got that a little older, a little more experience, and send the younger guys to kind of develop. But either way, it's an exciting time. She'll be some big moves. Still waiting on the big Dame Lillard trade to happen. Miami making some big offers now, trying to up the ante get in there. I'm still hoping to go somewhere else. And James Harden. I'm still confused about James Harden because he could have been a free agent, gone wherever he wanted, tried to get paid, but he opted in because it could be his last time to get a big contract. But he opts in, which is good because it gives you guaranteed money for this year. Then the next year you got to be on the free agent market trying to get it. Maybe he's hoping wherever he gets traded he can sign an extension. But it's just weird to me. You lock your contract into that place, but then you're but trade me. I'm opting in, but trade me. I was why not opt out and just go somewhere? It just seems like a weird move. But that's all. I'm gonna get out of here for today and just try to do a quick episode. Still end up talking for 45 minutes. Either way, thank you for listening. Check me out definitely on Spotify. I've been trying to post these episodes on YouTube as well, and using one of those turn your podcast to a video kind of shit. So not an actual video, but just it's on you just to get it on YouTube kind of stuff. Eventually, I'll try to do some videos. Still not quite ready for that. I need to get some better equipment instead of just talking into my laptop. But regardless, thanks for listening. Hope y'all have a great day. Should have watched them Braves tonight, baby. Taking on the White Sox. Should be a good series. I'm tempted to try to go tomorrow. My friend Jim, a big White Sox fan. I'm about to hit him up, see if he's going to that. But regardless, man, hope y'all have a great day. Check back in tomorrow for more of your new favorite podcast, Babbling Brooks. But for today, that is all. Peace out.